Hey everyone. So for those of you that are returning with us from the fall semester, welcome back. And for those of you who are new to Dr. Jackson's Intro Psych classes, welcome. So for the majority of you that were with us last semester, you may remember I posted a very similar video just going over the course and just tips and tricks, etc. So that's essentially the game plan for this one. I'm just going to go through the Blackboard site just verbally, not sharing my screen or anything, and just outlining the plan for the course, and then some study resources in addition to just like personal wellness resources that you may not be aware of. So I have the Blackboard site open on my laptop, so I'm just reading off of that, so you can check that out as well. So to start, as you know, everything is obviously virtual, so everything is working out of the Blackboard site. You do have your Revel textbook, so for those of you that were with us last semester, don't buy another one. I think the code is good for like 2 years or something, so please don't buy another one. And to reiterate, like last semester, nothing done on Revel counts for grades. So there's like quizzes, like test your knowledge quizzes throughout the chapter, and then end of chapter quizzes that you can do on Revel. Those are great because they're practice. So testing your knowledge and getting used to the formatting of psychology multiple choice questions. So you can do those if you like, but just know that they don't count towards your grades. So you do have chapter quizzes, like I'll get to, but those are done on Blackboard. So everything worth a grade is done on Blackboard. And for those of you that may have old versions of the Revel textbook, like old versions of the Intro Psych textbook, like last semester, you can use the old versions. Just be aware that, like, double check your chapter orders, because the content is likely very, very similar from different editions of the text, but sometimes they wiggle things around. So just double check that, like, the chapters are in the same order, compared to like the weekly schedule. So chapter 15 is chapter 15, like it's the same topics, just to make sure. I did that once where I had a textbook that I had the old version, and in the new version they rearranged the chapters, and I didn't know, and it was a pain in the butt trying to catch up and fix the problem because I didn't check beforehand. So just keep an eye on that if you have old versions of the text. So on your course homepage, I would say the first thing to check out is the Syllabus tab under that black bookmark bar on the left-hand side. So in here, you'll obviously see the syllabus and the weekly schedule, and then the FOSS policies and procedures. So that is obviously really important, just so you know all the little policies and whatnot that Dr. Jackson has to adhere to, and also your rights as students. So that's definitely worth taking a look at. But specifically for the course outline and the weeks are pretty much your golden documents, like the Bible for the course, because these are honestly like a contract. So after the first couple weeks, they can't be changed. So definitely take a look at that. So looking at the course outline first, I know there's a lot of stuff on here that you probably don't necessarily care about as much. Like, most of the time it's like you want to know what you're getting graded on and what's the plan for the course, and you don't really care about the rest of it. But I would encourage you to look at the whole thing. There's a lot of important information on there that may be useful to you that you didn't know about. So classroom meeting times, she is teaching synchronously this time. So for those of you that were with us last term, you'll know that she did post her recorded lectures online on YouTube, and you had your mentor meetings, but there was no actual class lectures. So this time around, she is going to record and post the lectures, but she will be using the virtual classroom on Blackboard to do lectures Tuesday and Thursday from 10 to 11:20. So just be aware this time around you do actually have to attend lectures. There aren't mentors this semester, so you won't have your mentor meetings, but 90% of the class is the same people as last semester. So if you've hopefully made a friend or peer or two from last semester, please do keep in contact with them, especially doing this online. I'd imagine it's easier if you have someone to talk to that's in the class. So Instructor GATA information, you'll see Dr. Jackson's office hours from on Tuesday and Thursdays from 11:30 to 12:30, so right after your lectures. And you know that the office hours are under virtual classroom and office hours tab, so pretty self-explanatory there. So you'll also see a list of GA and a TA for this semester. We were all with you last semester, which is great to have that continuity, so they know the course structure and you may be familiar with them. And me, of course. So as of right now, there aren't any office hours listed, so we're going to get that figured out. We'll have a meeting very quickly and like in the beginning of the term to figure these things out and just go over the course structure so everyone's on the same page. So I will say, no one attends office hours. I would say, I don't know, maybe I could probably count on two hands the amount of students I saw over the entire semester last year, and I held 3 or 4 hours of office hours a week. And if I wanted to narrow it down even further to unique students, like no repeats, I would probably be on one hand. So please use us. Keep in mind that it's obvious to use us when you have questions on your assignment grades, so you go to the person that graded your paper and whatnot. But keep in mind you can use us for anything related to the course. So if you have questions about a topic, like you're not understanding some course content, or you want help and study tips, I'm going to mention some of those in a moment, but if you just want to talk about like help in the course, or of course if you do have questions about like the assignment and whatnot. So it's really like we've tried all sorts of different things over the years to encourage people to come to office hours a lot more, because I can imagine it being kind of nerve-wracking when you don't know who's going to be on the other end, especially virtually. But I will say everyone is highly skilled. I've been doing this. I've been a GA for intro psych in some capacity. This is my 5th year, and it's my 3rd year as course assistant. And Antoinette has been doing it a year longer than me. Cassidy's been doing it 3 or 4 years now. Like the vast majority of us have been doing it at least 1 year under our belt before now. So we're very aware of the course and what it's like, and we do want to help. And it really does suck on the back end if you had questions about something and you just didn't ask, because we do want to help you. Honestly, it's kind of, when no one comes, like, I guess it's nice to just have an hour to eat lunch or do some other work or just hang out, but that's not what we're there for, so please do feel free. And Katarina is our TA, so just so you know, there is no difference in terms of responsibility or knowledge between the GAs and the TAs. Katarina was chosen, if a undergrad is a TA, it means they're doing very well in their program. So the only real difference is they have less hours on their contract to work, but she has all the same responsibilities as the rest of the GA team. So if you're trying to think of who to go to, like really we're all equivalent across the board. We all mark the same assignment and everything like that. So I would say maybe she'd be a bit more knowledgeable when it comes to actually taking this specific course. But she is just as knowledgeable as the rest of us when it comes to this course content. So yeah, that's my spiel on please come to office hours, please use us, and please feel comfortable to do so. And if you have any questions or issues with GAs, like God forbid that happens, I hope it never does, feel free to reach out to me. On paper, I'm just another GA. It's just because there's so many of us, I'm kind of like the lead GA to act as a buffer between Dr. Jackson and all the GAs, just because we're such a big team. So feel free to talk to me if you have any further questions or anything. And feel free to go and talk to Dr. Jackson too, if there's anything you're not comfortable talking to us about. So then you see your learning objectives, your course material, so the Revel textbook. Please go on Blackboard under resources and see how to get your textbook set up if you have not already. And then next you'll see the general curriculum and the weekly schedule. So this is a shortened version. For a broad, very detailed version, go in the weeks document. But you'll see in week 1, we're not doing anything formal or anything. It's just familiarize yourself with the course and with Revel, etc. Just like get yourself situated. And then you'll see the topics for the following weeks. Obviously nothing going on reading week. After reading week, you'll see you have your midterm, and I'll get into this more detail afterwards, etc., etc., etc. And then next we see the assessment breakdown, so what your grades are actually worth. And another reminder that all the graded material is through Blackboard. Nothing on Revel is graded. So you do have 8 chapter quizzes, just like you had 9, I think, last semester, because she broke chapter 6 into 2. So you do have 8 chapter quizzes. They're only worth 1% each. And because of this, they cannot be made up for any reason whatsoever. So they're available for either a week or 10 days before the due date. And they're like higher level questions than the Revel ones. The built-in Revel quizzes will ask you to test your knowledge on the chapters. So because they're only 1% each, if you miss it, unfortunately you can't make it up for any reason. So any technology issues or anything like that. So just try and get them done ahead of time, just so you don't run into those problems. That said, if you do miss them, that's why they are only 1%. So if you don't do well on one or anything like that, it's okay. It's just one. It's just worth 1%. So just try and take it as a learning opportunity. A lot of intro courses, like a lot of first-year university, is really just bumping your way around and learning how to be in university. And sometimes it can be really frustrating because you're not getting the results you want. And it really preps you to do much better the next year. So you'll see the due dates for all of them beside the chapter quizzes, and it'll be outlined in the weekly schedule in more detail. Your major assignment, I'm going to do a video just walking through the major assignment again, but this one you'll see it's worth much more this semester than it was last semester, because it's really the best measure of your actual knowledge compared to like your ability to actually apply the knowledge compared to like especially in online formats, online quizzes and everything, because we can't control the environment you're in. So you'll see that is due on March 8th by 4 p.m. You have to submit it on Blackboard. And I will say that this is a 2-part paper, and the first part is identical to last semester. So we were telling you last semester that you were going to get this paper again, so please take it as a learning opportunity, ask questions, etc., etc. So that's us fulfilling what we said, and then we want to expand on that, so help you build upon the knowledge. It's an incremental validity that it adds more knowledge every single time. So there is a second part to this. So this will be available at least by January 18th, although the first draft of the assignment is already done, and we're just looking it over and making sure it's fair and reasonable. So it'll likely be available much before then. So you have 7 weeks to do this one. And of course, you're not going to start 7 weeks ahead. You probably, it'd be understandable not to, because you haven't learned enough yet of the actual content that you're going to be writing about. So it's understandable not to start 7 weeks ahead. But keep in mind that, especially from how long it took you to write it last semester. Like, I'm guessing on average it took people longer than I expected, and this one is bigger. Like, I'm not saying it's double the size or anything, but it does add a second component onto the end. So keep in mind how long it took you last time, the feedback you got last time, your interpretations, like if it was harder than you expected, and then keep in mind that we did add a second part to this. So you need to plan to give yourself the time. So don't forget that Dr. Jackson and I both got quite blunt and honest about the situation when Friday came, and out of 360-ish students, only about 60 people, actually I think much less than that, but I could be wrong, very few, like there was still over 300 papers outstanding. And of course that's why you have the weekend. I think it's very common for students to do their work on the weekend, because I'd imagine, especially on virtual learning, it's exhausting during the week. But just keep in mind how tough that was to have that many outstanding. So just try and give yourself more time. I will say, because we have so many returning GAs can go back to last semester's Blackboard page and access your old papers. So if you want to take another look at yours, it's going to be totally different topics this time around, so you won't be able to reuse stuff. But if you want to go back and look at your paper again and the comments and your grades and, revisit the feedback, not to change the grades, of course, but like just to learn and make sure you're applying that knowledge, you can totally do that. Like go to an office hours, because all of us were here last semester, any of us can do it. So go for it. Like, please take advantage of that if you want. And I think we can download the annotated versions now from Blackboard. So to send you your paper with comments, I don't think the rubric would be included, but of course, like we can always tell you got 1 point here, 2 points here, whatever. So feel free to use that if you want to actually directly translate that feedback. Midterm exam worth 25%. It'll be available starting noon on Thursday, February 25th until noon Friday, February 26th. So it's available for 24 hours. And it'll be 105 multiple choice questions, and you'll have 120 minutes to take the exam. So you get just over a minute per question. And then the final exam will be worth 30%. Just like this past semester, you'll have 3 hours to do 165 multiple choice questions, and that date will be announced usually around just after reading week. They come out with the dates. So this semester, she added reflection, only worth 2%, but to reflect on your learnings in a topic in the course. So that will be due at the end of March 29th at 4 p.m. And just like the major assignment, you submit it on Blackboard. And bonus points. So this is optional, a maximum of 3. So you can either do the alternative assignment, or you can do research participation through the psychology participant pool. So I'll go into a bit more detail about that in a moment. Let's see if there's anything else I want to point out. In the rest of the syllabus, a few things I really want to point out. Reach. So this is an online peer support program designed for academic support for first and second year students. So here you can get tips on study skills, time management, Windsor specific campus resources, things like that. So this can be really, really helpful, especially if you found last semester, your first semester, to be a pretty tough transition, especially with it online. So Reach sessions run from 12 to 8 p.m. on Mondays through Fridays, and there's a link to the portal, so you can sign up for it if you want. One other thing to mention is wellness resources. So I put a big announcement about this last semester on Blackboard. I'll probably copy it over into Blackboard again this semester, and hopefully some of you found it helpful. University is freaking hard. And if you found it difficult, you're not alone. It's supposed to be. It's very high level education. And some of you, like, it's really common that this just isn't, not even being all online, but university learning just isn't the best way that some people learn, sitting there listening to a lecture versus if you're like me and you're a hands-on learner. I don't learn very well sitting in a lecture. So depending on your own personal styles, it just may not be the easiest format for you. And then you put it all online in the middle of a pandemic, and it's difficult. So it can be really stressful. And then, of course, all of you will have some degree of your own life circumstances, especially the stress of a pandemic. So there are a lot of student wellness resources that I want to make sure that you know. So this is in your syllabus, but you can also just go to the Student Counseling Center website on the page on the UN website to go through all the stuff that's there. So we do have disclosure. I am a PhD clinical psych student doing a practicum at the Student Counseling Center. So I'm running some group therapies. Now, if any of you ended up in one of my groups, first of all, I'm bound by confidentiality. I can never say to Dr. Jackson or literally to anyone other than, my Student Counseling Center supervisor that you're in my group. And it could never transition and impact anything going on in this course. I don't even mark the assignments anyway because I help administrate all the other things. I don't have the hours in my contract. So it would never impact your grades or your performance or anything. But that said, say you wanted to do a group therapy, please feel free to let them know that, by the way, Healy's my GA and I'm just not comfortable with that. That's totally fine. But just so you're aware of that. So at the Student Counseling Center, we have a lot of different services available. So you can do individual counseling. They have a wonderful team of a bunch of different people. There is a Black therapist available. So any Black students, BIPOC, people of color students, you can ask specifically for a Black therapist available to you. But otherwise, you can sign up for individual counseling. And as I just mentioned, we also have group counseling. So this isn't general support group. This is actual therapy, evidence-based therapy that is designed to be conducted in a group format. So there's usually 2 facilitators with that, 2 staff facilitators doing it together. And there'll be different cohorts running. So if group therapy is something you're interested in, you can ask them when the cohorts are running and see what works with your schedule. Those usually run for between 6 and 8 weeks, depending. We also have actual just drop-in support groups. So there will be the actual dates and times of the support groups will be posted on the Student Counseling Center website. But we do have one just general stress support, especially specific to the pandemic. It was called COVID Care Conversations in the first semester, so assuming it kept the same name, but just general support. And then we have one for LGBTQ plus support. So, like I said, it's not therapy. It's just an open drop-in support groups. However, we will have 1 or 2 Student Counseling Centers staff members present just to moderate and just to, make sure everything's okay. So those may or may not be members of the LGBTQ plus community. Hopefully they are, just depending on availability. So there will be staff members present, but it's not formal therapy. So it's just some place that you can drop in, hopefully chat with peers and just support each other, especially for the LGBTQ plus population, being connected with other members of your community. And then we added one after a lot of really horrifying racist events by members, student staff members of the university campus community. We added a third one for BIPOC students. It's called, I believe it's called Racialized Voices Gathered Together. So this one is for BIPOC, people of color, students to get together. And one of the facilitators is a Black therapist, and then there will be another allied Student Counseling Center staff member present. So please feel free to go online, go on the Student Counseling Center website and see more information on that. And what else is there? The Psychological Services and Research Center. So I guess if any of you have seen the campus in person, it's a big house on Sunset, just like a couple blocks away from the actual main campus on the water. And that's where the clinical psychology masters and PhD students like myself would do courses with a clinical component or full-blown like clinical placements, and conduct individual evidence-based therapy. So they get their referrals through the Student Counseling Center. So that's another step in the stepped care model if a client needs full individual evidence-based longer-term therapy, whereas the therapy and counseling at the counseling center is designed to be more short-term, they can refer to the PSRC. And then in general, there is the My SSP app, which has 24/7 counseling on a phone app, and it's available in, I think, over 100 languages. Don't quote me on the number, but dozens of different languages. And there's also the TAO, Therapy Assistance Online. So those are two apps that you can carry with you. So please feel free to check those out at any time. It's not like it has to be done in January right away, but if at any time you're feeling really stressed out or distressed in any way and you want some extra support, like I said, it's always confidential. So within the circle of care, so like a therapist can't discuss the name or like disclose the identity of a client to anyone outside the circle of care. So like designated people, and this is discussed with the client at the beginning. So Dr. Jackson would never know, I would never know, etc. So as a clinician, that's my plug on resources available to you. And then there are academic support services. So I think I'm on the second last page of the syllabus now. So especially as you go into your major assignment, if you found last semester's assignment really difficult, or you weren't with us last semester or whatever, there is the writing support desk. Of course, it says it's located on the main floor of the library, but you can't go into the library right now, really. But you can go to uwindsor.ca/writing support and get some help there. So it says it's not a proofreading service, but they can examine like a sample of your writing in a one-on-one consultation, give you some tips on like APA format, things like that. And then there's resources about IT, etc. So be sure to go through even like the other parts of the syllabus that aren't just about your grade, just to make sure you know everything available to you, because half the time you don't, right? You're just trying to focus on what you actually need to do. So now moving into the weekly schedule. So this is just a really blown up, detailed version of what you can expect week to week. I'm just going to go over this like very lightly since you can read it yourself. So I can actually see the document. So in that first week, since the week is technically only 2 days because semester starts on a Thursday, there's no lecture planned. So your mission for first week, is just to go on the Blackboard site, read stuff, like familiarize yourself with all the content, read all the announcements. About 95% of questions can be answered either in announcements already posted or the assignment details document, the weekly schedule, the syllabus. 9 times out of 10, it's already right in front of you. It's just, I can imagine it's very overwhelming to open up the Blackboard site for the first time and have all the stuff. So just, take it slow bit by bit. But, so you're not overwhelming and over cramming information in your head, but just try and look at everything and then see if you still have questions. And if you do, please do ask them. So your mission for January 7th and 8th is to log onto the Blackboard site, read all the announcements, review all the folders, make sure your Revel account's set up, and start going on chapters 9 and 15. So chapter 9 is totally independent study. So Dr. Jackson is big on helping you get into the habit of doing independent study on your own. So plus it also gives some leeway to go into more detail in class by alleviating one of those chapters. But chapter 9 will still be on your midterm and then the final because it's cumulative. There is still a quiz, so you're still going to be assessed on the chapter 9 material. It's just not going to be part of her lecture time. So she will give you slides and materials like she does for everything else, but just not a lecture, recorded or otherwise. So read and study it on your own. Questions, like everything, will come from the book and from the slides. And keep in mind, just because it's on your own doesn't mean you can't ask questions. So if you read it, like you do your independent study, and there's something you don't understand, like please do ask. You're allowed to ask questions just because it's independent study. Doesn't mean we expect you to figure it all out on your own. So if you're stuck, like please do ask. It's just there's going to be no formal lecture on it. So the following week is when things get going in the traditional sense. So starting the week of January 11th, lectures for the course will start. So starting with chapter 15, etc., etc. The following week of January 18th, is when the quizzes start. So your first quiz will expire at 4 p.m. on January 22nd. So all of the quiz deadlines are outlined and highlighted in this document. So in your first prep week, like those 2 days of prep, January 7th and 8th, I recommend, if you use a day planner or online calendars or whatever, just take half an hour and put all your deadlines in there. It can really also help alleviate some preemptive anticipatory anxiety about what the course is going to be like, because you've already got it down. I always found that really helped me, even though I haven't actually done any of the work. Just knowing that I wrote it down, I write down. I don't get as much benefit from like virtual calendars, but whatever your style is, getting it down somewhere can be really helpful. So yeah, your first quiz. And that week it says the major assignment will be posted by the 18th of January. It'll likely be up there much sooner. So it's due on March 8th by 4 p.m. You can turn it in sooner, and we encourage you to do so, or at least get started on it sooner. If it's late, just like last semester, if it's late, we will take it up to 5 days. After 5 days, we don't take anything, but you lose 10% each day it's late. So if it's due on at 4 p.m. on the 8th, starting at 4:01 on the 8th, you lose 10%. And then that continues until, 4 p.m. on the 9th, when you lose 20%, etc. And then more than 5 days late, we don't accept it, because at that point, you'd be losing 50% in deductions, which just is too much. Like, at that point, it's more likely to almost get a zero. Like, you would have to be a knock out of the park kind of paper to overcome a 50% deduction. So I would suggest do it bit by bit, like even just do like a skeleton outline at first and then come in and work on it bit by bit, just so you're not trying to do it all at once. Especially online, our brains are fried being on screens all day, and burnout is happening much quicker, I find anyway. So just trying to do it piece by piece instead of all at once. So then life goes on. You'll see through the following weeks the last financial drop date, where you can drop a course and it'll adjust financially, is on February 3rd. So that's noted in your document here. We know that the week of February 15th is reading week, so no classes. So that rolls in, February 13th to 21st, that rolls in Family Day. So no classes, no deadlines. Take advantage of working on your assignment. We'll put reminders up here, but there won't be office hours that week. And we will still answer emails, likely not as promptly, because it is like GAs and TAs are also students, right? So it is a holiday for us too. So probably not as quickly as usual, but we will still be available via email for that reading week. And then when you go back, the week of the 22nd, you'll see your midterm exam is that week, and you'll see a note that there's a lecture only on Tuesday, not on Thursday, because if you remember, your midterm exam starts that day, so it's not fair to try and do a lecture on the same day that you have an exam starting. That's just a little cruel. So then keep going, and then you'll see the week of the 8th, again, your assignment's due by 4 p.m. The following week, so I'm just going down in the weekly schedule, the week of the 15th of March, there's a note that March 17th is the last day to voluntarily withdraw. So it's called the VW date. So it's the last day to withdraw without that mark appearing on your transcript. After that, you just kind of, it's on your transcript, you just have to write it out. So hopefully this doesn't come to any of you, but especially in such a large class, it's common. It happens that people decide it's not for them, or especially with online learning, it's just not working for them right now. No shame in it, essentially, but keep this date in mind. And if you think it's going to be like you're absolutely going to fail the class, or you've had extraneous circumstances and you haven't done anything for the class or whatever, like, do feel free to take advantage of this. 1160 and 1150 run all year, so it's very, very common for people to drop and retake it at another time, or even if you do write it out and you don't get like the mark you want, whether you fail or you just have a low mark, or your mark's okay, but maybe you want grad school and you just want to bump up your grades, that's fine. So people retake it all the time. It's offered in the summer as well. So 1150 is offered in the May-June intersession, and then 1160 is offered in the summer, July-August courses. So it's offered all year, but just be aware of that date. And then the following week, if you decide to do the alternative bonus points assignment, alternative for bonus points, an alternative to the online participant pool, that's due by 4 p.m. on the 26th, and that goes directly via email to Dr. Jackson because she marks those. The GAs have nothing to do with that. And then the following week, if the reflection is due by 4 p.m. on the 29th, and you submit on Blackboard just like your major assignment. And there's a note here because you do have a quiz due on the 1st of April, which is a Thursday instead of the 2nd, and she has a note that it's not an April Fool's joke, but the Friday is Good Friday, so the university is closed, and she can't have a deadline on a holiday on a day that the university is closed. So just be aware that week the quiz is due on Thursday, not Friday, because it's not like it's an official rule that your quizzes are due on Fridays. That's just kind of the way she set it up, so you don't want to be thrown off by this one quiz being due on a different day. And that gets us through to last day of classes on the 7th. So the final exam period is between the 12th and the 22nd. It's comprehensive, so including the midterm, and the date will be announced sometime around reading week, a bit after. Historically, it's usually been around there, but no guarantees. So essentially, it's your job to be available between the 12th and the 22nd. So they give you this block of time, say it's going to be in here, just prep for it to be in there. So that's your weekly schedule. So that's everything in the syllabus. When we have the office hours all said and done, like scheduled for the GAs, under syllabus, I'll just add a chart. Instead of you having to go in and pull up the syllabus document, I'll just add a chart under that syllabus tab on Blackboard with all the GA and TA office hours and contact information. So that's just there for you. You see with the announcements tab, sometimes we choose to have the announcements blasted out to you via email, but not all of them are. So just be sure to take a peek at the announcements fairly regularly, just in case there's anything there that wasn't sent via email, just so you don't miss anything. And then under resources, this is where like everything you'll need for the course is. So be sure to look there quite regularly. So I'm in there now, and you'll see student code of conduct. So with everything online, there's so much that we just have to accept we can't control as like the educator team. So like the quizzes and the exams are technically closed book. You should not have your book open while you're doing them. We want to actually test your knowledge, and we can't control that, unfortunately. So we do what we can. We adjust the weights and whatnot, but we can't control how you actually do it. So please read this code of conduct, and it's set up like a Qualtrics quiz. So read it, sign it. Basically, our expectations for you in the course, so that you will do the quizzes and exams without your textbook open. So you will actually challenge your knowledge to the best of your abilities. Sometimes that doesn't result in the mark you want, but when it comes to knowledge you actually remember later on, it'll be much more useful to you. I had an online exam when I was in undergrad that he said could be open book because he couldn't control it, but he did put like timers, actually timers on each individual question, not on the test as a whole. And first of all, it was honestly more stressful because he said it was open book. I didn't prepare the same way I would if it was closed book and if it was in person. And it was more stressful because I was trying to look up information, and I didn't learn anything. Like, honestly, I don't remember anything that was on that exam. I know it was long ago, but I would have said the same thing the day after the exam. So it may not, because we're actually saying this is closed book, we don't want you using your textbook, and we're going to have you do this code of conduct to hold you to that. You'll learn so much more if you actually try and put effort in and learn the material. The next folder has Psych participant pool, so it will have all the information you need to sign up for the participant pool, like when the deadline is to sign up, etc. And this is one way to get your 3% bonus, and you're essentially taking part in because we can't do in-person research right now, all online research, where you're actually helping people get their thesis done, for undergrad, for master's, or PhD dissertation. So you're helping people get their degrees. So I know we're really thankful to have this as people who use it. Just keep in mind that we have the participant pool exists outside Intro Psych. So if you have any questions about not being able to sign up for studies or not being able to register, contact the participant pool, because we can't really help you there. We'll just end up forwarding you to participant pool. Weekly schedule assignment details folder. The weekly schedule document is here again. And then a document called assignment details, where she outlines everything you're going to get graded on. So look here, know it, remember it, go over it. She says chapter quizzes. There are 25 questions. I believe she gives you 50 minutes per quiz. That's what she did last term. So 25 questions, 15 minutes to do them, so you get 2 minutes per question. If you miss the deadline, can't be made up for any reason, will be available at least 1 week before they're due. Last semester, we had them available more like 10 days, so much more than a week. The major assignment, the midterm exam, final exam, the reflection. So the reflection will be a short essay, so short, it's only worth 2%. Short essay reflecting on your year in university, an introduction to psychology. And then information on the bonus points. So be sure to look at that document. And then you'll see a folder where all of your chapter quizzes will be. It's called chapter quizzes, suitably. So I do know with Blackboard, it has features, almost kind of like a reminder calendar for you that says you have a deadline coming up. Be sure to do this, like a to-do thing. I think that's a great feature, but keep in mind, you may not be aware, we have no control over that. That's an automatic thing that Blackboard does. So I think a few people last year, we were realizing that they missed their quizzes because they were just looking in their to-do list, or like it wouldn't open for them through there. The only way that we have it set up for you to access your quizzes, access your exam, all those things, is to go into resources, go into the quiz folder or the exam folder and access it that way. The to-do list is a Blackboard feature that we have no control over. So if it malfunctions, that has nothing to do with us. So I'm not saying don't use it. If it works, go for it. But be aware that the only way we're guaranteeing you access these things is through the folders. So I would say access it that way and only that way, because that's the only way we're guaranteeing that it works, because we actually set it up and tested it ourselves. And because we're not students enrolled in the course, we can't even test out the to-do list feature, right? So then there's a folder for learning objectives, rapid reviews, so good study tools. And then you'll see she has a folder for every single chapter. So like you would have seen last semester, if you were with us last semester, she'll post the link for the lectures in there and her slides. So her slides, like her version for you of the slides, don't contain all the information. So that way you have to go to the lecture and fill it in yourself. Then you'll see a folder for APA resources. So super, super, super important. Use this, especially when it comes to your major assignment, as helpful links. A year ago, they did update from 6th to 7th edition for APA. So just be sure, if any of you have prior experience with APA and you've used the 6th before, be sure to use the 7th. So there's a ton of resources here. So just be sure to use it. And then when the major assignment does come available, there'll be a folder with everything you need for your major assignment in there, including I've been posting an FAQ, so frequently asked questions, and the submission area, so where you go to submit, instructions to submit, like a checklist, like before you submit, have you done this, have you done this, and then obviously the actual instructions themselves. I usually post both a Word document and a PDF, but they're the same thing, so don't worry that there's two things. And you'll see that the instructions are mega detailed. Like, I could see it being almost too much, but this is just to really outline step by step everything that you need, and you probably will never get this much detail again. So just to basically set you up and prep you and start leading you in the right direction. So as you get up on the years and you're given less and less direction, you'll be able to pull back from this information and know what to do, right? So just to set you up for the future years. And when the reflection is ready to go, there'll be a folder that pops up there as well. So look in your resources folder for everything. Virtual classroom and office hours, you'll click that tab and it'll have everything listed, like all the office hours and the lectures. So you just go there and join. And there is a tab, virtual classroom tutorial, so you can learn how to use it as well. So that's the whole Blackboard site. And I think I mentioned a lot of these last semester, but just general tips on how to do well in the course, if you don't remember, or if you're new to us this term, or if you just really had a hard time last semester. So I went over the mental health resources, so please use those. But general study tips, so you need to study. I mean, I don't mean like, I'm sure other disciplines are very difficult in their own way too. And Psyc's way of being difficult is in the fact that our terms and our concepts are a lot of times very related to, like, interrelated to each other. So our questions, if you've seen any of the Psych multiple choice, are usually more geared to not recognition, but more understanding and application. So a more of a best fitting answer. So what answer best fits here? So you'll see a lot of questions like, so-and-so was out walking on the street and was amongst of a crowd of people, and then someone fainted and they didn't do anything because they expected someone else would jump in and help out. This is a good example of what? So it's more of a scenario, almost like you could think of like a word problem in math. It's a scenario-based question. You have to find the best fitting answer, compared to maybe more like clear-cut, like blank is an example of what kind of question. So psych questions can be quite different in that sense, that they're very wordy. And you really need to actually know and apply the information to do well with psych questions, because it's not going to be as obvious necessarily. So study to learn the information, not just to recognize, because that won't get you nearly as far, and you don't hold on to it as long. So if you're just studying for memory, it's going to stay in your short-term memory. It's not going to go into your long-term memory. It's not going to be associated with things. And we know the more things that are associated with a piece of information, the better you remember it. So if you just try and remember this one definition, it's not associated with anything. You can think of it as like a little memory node just off on its own, not connected to anything. But then if you start applying it, like, especially we remember self-referential information best. So if you start applying something, and if you can apply it in a way that links to yourself, think of that little node of information starting to connect to like all these other nodes of information in your mind. So now it's really starting to get connected and cemented in your memory. And it'll be much easier for you to recall later on. So these are all terms to describe human experience. So try and think of ways that you've seen whatever the term is in real life, or possibly experienced it yourself, maybe seen it on TV or in a book. So easy example in chapter 15, trying to distinguish different types of anxiety disorders. Like, have you seen it? Have you read a book on it? Or someone you know has this disorder or something like that. So try and actually apply it to real life, yours or otherwise, but try and actually apply the information, not just remember it. And another good thing is, like, the more effort it takes, the better you remember it. So we have all these different senses: auditory, like hearing, seeing, tactile. I don't think taste or smell would get you very far, but who knows. So depending on what kind of a learner you are, like if you learn auditorily very well, or tactile or visual, read the information so you're getting that visual. Read it out loud to yourself. So you're getting the visual and you're hearing it. Write it out. So now you're pulling in the tactile. So the more effort it takes, the more senses you use, the better you'll remember it. Or even try and explain it to someone else. It's usually a bit of a hot mess if you try and explain something you just learned to someone, but it helps you learn because you're saying it to someone else and you're having to help them understand it. Flashcards, like quiz yourself, quiz each other. So people form study groups all the time, and that's really helpful. Especially, I think that's one of the major benefits of the mentor groups. Aside from having that mentor, it ensures that you make connection with a smaller group of people, because there are over 300 of you, and it could be really hard to make connections in a group that size. So at least with the smaller mentor groups, hopefully you've connected with at least one other person. So make study groups, quiz each other, help each other out. Ask questions where you don't understand. And go through after deadlines. The quizzes and exams will be available, so you'll be able to see all the questions and the answers and which ones you got right, which ones you got wrong. So go through them and learn from those, because that'll be really helpful, especially the quizzes, because you know they'll be on the midterm, and you know the midterm will be on the final, like the same chapters will be on the final. So that'll be really helpful. And when you actually take a test, I would say usually each question, like how often do you narrow it down to 2? And those are the ones you're stuck between. So just try and go through and knock off The answers that you know aren't the answer. So it's kind of like in a math problem, just Xing out the unnecessary information. Like, do that where you can, so then you really narrow it down to the bare minimum of what you actually need to focus on. So I'd say that's my spiel. Welcome. Please ask questions, reach out if you need us. But with that, really encourage you to try and find the answer yourself first. So look on the syllabus, look on the assignment directions, read all the announcements. And then if you still have questions, please ask us, especially maybe it's something that we haven't thought about ourselves and would be really helpful. So looking forward to another term with you guys, and best of luck. Stay safe, and welcome to 1160.